In all of Canada's history until 2020, only 4 TV dramas made by and about Black Canadians had made it to air on a major broadcaster. Canada's screen output has been predominantly white, male, and heterosexual, even though Black people have been part of Canada's population since before Confederation. The system is broken, or more accurately, it was designed to exclude Black creators and Black-focused content from the Canadian screen canon. So in 2021, the Black Screen Office set out to identify the central issues that create barriers for Black screen industry workers and Black audiences. While Black people are uniquely marginalized by Canada's screen industry, the BSO recognized that there are common experiences across all underrepresented groups. Examining and addressing inclusion and authentic representation holistically would be critical for the industry to become truly equitable. The BSO launched 3 research projects: Being Counted, Being Heard, and Being Seen. With the knowledge gained from this research, BSO can work with decision makers on tools and strategies to dismantle the industry's anti-Black practices and improve authentic representation overall. The 3 research projects look at the issues from different angles. Being Counted looks at audiences, specifically Black, Indigenous, and people of color audiences, whose preferences are usually hidden within general population data in traditional audience surveys. This basically makes them invisible to screen content decision makers. Through Being Counted, these decision makers gain insight into who they are missing, as well as these viewers' habits and preferences. Being Heard looks inward at the Canadian screen industry. It offers data on the prevalence of Black workers and their experiences. Black industry workers have not been examined in any meaningful way until now, and Being Heard will help identify ways to support their success. Being Seen looks at Canada's screen industry content. Inspired by Imaginative's protocols and pathways, Being Seen explores the perspectives of screen industry professionals and members of the viewing public who are Black, people of color, 2S LGBTQIA+, and people with disabilities. From across the country, more than 400 individuals from these communities participated in Being Seen focus groups and interviews in both English and French. Participants included members of the screen industries as well as the general public. For the Children's Media Report, we talked to children's media creators from the 4 communities, and also parents and children and youth ranging in age from 6 to 17. Knowing that individuals have multiple dimensions, BSO took an intersectional approach to this research, which allowed participants to talk about any aspects of their identity. Letting participants choose allowed them to bring their full selves to these discussions. BSO also divided communities into subcategories whenever possible, such as a blind or deaf focus group within the people with disabilities category. This allowed for deeper exploration of specific communities. Within these Being Seen safe spaces, participants spoke with passion, strength, vulnerability, and at times, tears. They provided valuable insights into how Canada's screen industries can and must change to better reflect them and their needs. Many common themes emerged across the communities, as well as challenges unique to each community group. The result of this research is the Being Seen Core Report, which captures the universal themes shared across all 4 communities. There are also 5 companion reports, 1 in each community, and a Children's Media Report. Each report offers anecdotal insights on representation, as well as clear directives for industry leaders on how to create and commission more authentic and inclusive content. The data and perspectives that Being Counted, Being Heard, and Being Seen reveal establish an evidence-based foundation for change. This BSO research can and should support industry leaders to create and approve content that authentically represents the full diversity of Canada's communities. We also expect them to prompt more discussion and action on the structural changes that are needed to increase representation on set, on screen, and in industry boardrooms.
Okay, we'll get started, and then if a few people join us, that's good too. Okay, just want to start with our land acknowledgements. We want to begin by honoring the land that we're on, which has been the site of human activity since time immemorial. The Black Screen Office is located on the traditional territories of the Huron-Wendat, Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit River First Nation. However, as a virtual meeting, we want to also acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations who call this land home and host us today and every day. We're all treaty people. Many of us have come here as settlers, immigrants, newcomers in this generation or generations past. We would like to also acknowledge those of us who came here forcibly, particularly as the result of the transatlantic slave trade. Therefore, we honor and pay tribute to the ancestors of African origin and descent. And the other little bit of housekeeping I want to do is a visual description. I'm here, I've got tan colored skin, red glasses, short gray hair, purple t-shirt against a blue wall with staircase, and occasionally you see my cat going up and down the stairs. So this is our third workshop for Being Seen, children's media, sponsored by the Shaw Rocket Fund, Canadian Race Relations Foundation, and of course the Black Screen Office, which ran all of the research. I'm Kelly Lynn Ashton, the lead researcher on the project. I always forget to introduce myself until later. And I'm here with Georgina Lopez and Renata Lopez as the facilitators who are helping me with this session. If you both can introduce yourselves.
Yeah, thank you for having us. We're really honored to have been asked to be a part of this, as it's so important to have these discussions. So thank you. I'm Renata, and that is Georgina. I am wearing a hat backwards, which Georgina yelled at me for earlier. And I have like a orangey color shirt. I have a black shirt, and we're identical twins, Mexican, and we're gorgeous. Me extra, thank you. Go ahead. So yeah, we are the founders and I guess the CEOs of Lopi Productions, based in Toronto. Lopi being, of course, the plural of Lopez, which is where it comes from. And we have been creating children's content all of our careers, but exclusively with our company is our specialty. And our whole mandate is that every child deserves to see themselves on TV. And so it's with extra care that we are always sort of aware when creating the content that it is accurate and reflects the diverse representation that is the world we live in. So that's who we are. So I think we can probably.
Okay, so the format of this is similar to what we've been doing for the first two. On Monday, we did a discussion of the core themes and the Children's Media Report. Yesterday, it was the Black communities, and today it's people of color communities. Then we'll be doing 2S LGBTQIA+ Thursday and people with disabilities on Friday. So we're looking here in more detail at stereotypes and challenges that the kids coming from people of color communities have talked to us about that are upsetting to them, and things that they want to see changed. So I want to start first with talking about people of color as an umbrella term. People don't tend to identify as people of color. It is really a grouping that allows us to talk about people from different backgrounds who have common experiences. But identity is more about either a regional area, South Asian, for example, or more often it's that specific identity being from Bangladesh. What sometimes you'll see is if people are of mixed background of a number of different people of color communities, then they may identify by that regional. So if they're mixed Chinese, Vietnamese, then they may say East Asian. But it's the more specific you can get, that's more likely the identity. But in particular, when we're talking research, we have to look at umbrella terms. So, and then there are different umbrella terms. So if we can show up the next slide or the first slide. So Statistics Canada still uses the term visible minorities, which I think nobody else is using, but that's what we have to deal with. And we have to talk about people of color communities because of the size of them as a proportion of the Canadian population. In the 2016 census, it was 22% visible minorities. This coming fall, we'll get the data on the 2021 census, and I strongly expect that to be a higher number. Oh, what happened to the screen? Oh, there it is. We're back. So the breakdown for Canada, East and Southeast is 8.5%, 5.6%, South Asian 5.58%, West Asian and Arab 2.29%, Latin American 1.29%. That breakdown is important because we have to compare it to what we see coming out of the US with US content, where it's Hispanic or Latino is 18.5%, and they lump all Asians together as 5.9%. And other demographics just don't even show up. We look different from Americans. So when our kids are seeing content coming out of the States, they're seeing a different visual demographic than what they are living in, the communities that they're living in. It's also important to understand the dispersal of the demographic across Canada. People of color are everywhere. They, at one point, maybe they were just in urban centers, but now they're across Canada. The next slide, I think. Right. So this is for just the biggest three cities, you see the difference because in Toronto, it's South Asian, Chinese, Filipino. Vancouver, Chinese, South Asian, Filipino, and Montreal is completely different at Arab, Latin American, and Chinese as the top demographics. So when you're centering a story in a particular location, that's what you should keep in mind is the world that you're creating is going to look different depending on where you're creating it. And it's one of the other things is that there's been a lot of growth. And while we talk here about Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal, there's been so much growth in places like Alberta, where it's now, because of recent immigration, 23.5% visible minorities are in Alberta. One of the kids in one of our focus groups complained that kids' content doesn't look like his classroom. And he was in Alberta. So this idea that the Midwest of Canada is primarily white is not reflected by their experience. So I think that's it, what I wanted to go through with stats, and maybe I'll turn it over to you two.
Yeah, so we've kind of set this up so it's more like we want to kind of encourage a conversation. So we'll ask questions and hopefully people can answer. I think for the recording purposes, it's better that you answer with your voice if you can versus in the chat, although we will also encourage chat if that's your comfort. So I guess the first sort of question, of course, is like, before we begin to think about kids shows and sort of how many shows you can think of where the leads are people of color. And in this particular case, people of color being, the not bi part of the BIPOC, the POC part. So, the POC. So yeah, just thinking about that in terms of the leads of kids content. And we also asked our kids this question yesterday at dinner. We're like, okay, let's open up this conversation to see.
It was a challenge, so let's see how many we can try to get listed out there. Shows starring people of color that are not Black or Indigenous.
The POC part.
Can we claim POC?
So I did some research. I actually asked my kid as well. I was like, give me the goods. But I found two. One, because I'm researching STEM shows, mainly STEAM and STEM shows for girls. And one was Diary of a Future President, which had a Latina lead. And then the second one was E=MC², where there was like a couple of white lead, like the main lead is a white lady, a white girl, but the rest there's some POC in there as well. So I was like, yes, we got that. But those are the ones that I know, and they're obviously not as many as I would wish and hope for, because when I asked my kid was like, oh, Bella and the Bulldogs, and I was like, oh, the girl, there's no POC lead there. So yeah, so yeah.
Yes.
It's a few and far between, as you mentioned.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Didn't even know that.
So if we can bring up the slide that we came up with. This was just us trying to list shows that were, is that it? No, that's a very nice slide, but there we go. Of shows that we kind of came up with, and it was harder to find characters. There was a lot of shows, yeah, where the lead is Black, but we were specifically trying to find people of color. So here's some shows. I think PBS in particular is killing it because they had a lot of shows, including Alma's Way, which is here. And there's Mira Royal Detective, I think and then Casa Grandes on Nickelodeon, Blue's Clues, which was like one of the only shows that we could find that starred somebody from South Asia, so Philippines here. And then there's what is it called?
Never Have I Ever.
Never Have I
It's
Ever.
not really like a kid show. It's more of a older, young
It's for
adult.
teens. We
Yeah.
were trying to find live action, and so yeah, these are some of the shows that we came up with. Our kids listed Babysitters Club, which is great. It's on Netflix. I know there's like a mix of the cast there. The Proud Family, well, it's not really. And then yeah,
Star versus Evil, and then of course there was other like kid shows as well.
yeah.
So those were some of the shows, and then of course movies, Turning Red and Encanto came up as well.
So I guess our next question is, so it was easier to find shows where there was like a person of color supporting character as well. So there was a lot of shows where it was like the best friend is, there's that character. So it was just a bit of a challenge to find person of color leads. So hopefully we can try to change that. And also, I guess the question is for older kids. I think we found a lot of shows that were for preschool, which is great. Like I said, PBS, Nickelodeon. But when I was trying to Disney, when I was trying to quiz our older kids, cartoon shows that kids are actually watching, how many of those shows have people of color? So just a thought, something to think of.
Yeah, and then just I guess thinking of when there are these characters, sort of how many are sort of rooted in stereotypes. So we asked our kids these questions, and it was really interesting to see their perspective coming out. One of the things they brought up was like the new character on Paw Patrol being the Mexican character, being a Chihuahua, like it's just kind of like those kind of ways of showing
your stereotypes. What was that one? Yeah, I mean, we don't want to because they're all Canadian shows, our peers. So
Yeah,
we love you, we love you. So we were just naming, we were just coming up with characters. So there's a show called Total Drama Island, which is the show is supposed to be about stereotypes, but I guess all of the Latino character and the people of color characters were based on stereotypes. So I guess our question out there is, how does
total drama Rama?
Our question is, how does basing a character on a stereotype, how is that potentially harmful for children growing up that are people of color and that see themselves as a stereotype? Anyone want to start a conversation or share a story? We can give an example. So, for example, for us, because we're Mexican, everybody loves Speedy Gonzalez from the Looney Tunes shows. And even though he is very stereotyped, he has a sombrero and a mustache and says "Ay, arriba, arriba." He was actually very embraced by our family, but I think that it can be a stereotype because we want to show that there's more real dimensional characters that are Mexican that are not just like this. I think we can tend to embrace characters that are stereotyped because it's all we have, but it can be harmful if you just see characters that are kind of the plucky comedy that people laugh at or make fun of, or there's the villain, right, which is also one of the stereotypes.
Yeah, definitely. I think that on the one hand, that being sort of the only representation, we sort of embrace these characters, but then on the other hand, for our non-BIPOC friends, they are often seeing that representation as the only representation. So getting sort of the the impression that is the way we are, and we're not. So not always, anyways. So just I think in that situation, it's I tell a story about when we were kids, we moved to a small town, and we were very shocked at people sort of not being aware of what we were. They thought we were sort of related to the Indian family that also lived in the town, which we thought was very amusing, but it actually I guess isn't very funny, because it's just to show you sort of what the lack of representation does on TV. It doesn't, you're not exposed to other people. So we were kind of trying to explain that we were not Indian and we were not Black and we were Mexican. And one of the kids said, "Oh, like a Dorito chip." And I remember this because I was like, yes, like a Dorito chip. But anyways, just showing you sort of importance of exposure on not being just stereotypes of sombreros and Dorito chips and tacos, and more of showing
Real people.
real people.
We have some questions. Patrick, you want to say something?
Yes, thank you. I actually do relate to what you guys been through with the comparison to looking South Asian a lot. I'm a mixed race Brazilian. My parents are white and my mom is native Brazilian, which is again not very common to find people to understand what a native Brazilian looks like. So here in Canada, I've been addressed as South Asian several times, and not only by people that don't know me, but also my cousins or my wife's side of the family. Sometimes they do come to me and ask why I'm darker and other things. But again, they lived here, so it's completely different from the scenario of what they experience when they're in Brazil. But in regards to movies and how they set up different stereotypes, there's Rio, which is the only Brazilian movie out there, which is again not made for Brazilians, but it happens in Brazil. Um, for Brazilians, the movie itself is just not that famous or like big to the community. Like it's just something that happened a long time ago. But when I came here, there was several like comments as to like, oh, you're Brazilian, like you probably watched that movie Rio. I was like, no, I didn't. Not until like I was much older. But then they would bring up like things that they saw in the movie that they thought it was like common, you know, it's like, oh, you guys like are constantly partying, right? It's like carnival's like every day. It's like, no, carnival's like 1 week in February. That's it. Like the rest of the year is just like doing whatever. And even during carnival, like we don't stop. Like we're continuously working. You know, like the people that you see there, they're just like people that actually work for carnival. Like carnival is like also business, you know, situation. Like people are working and getting paid to do those things there. And there's like the whole part of like Rio being such a like paradise, you know, like people go there for vacation and stuff like that. So there's that part of like there's a very common stereotype even like within Brazilians that um people that live in Rio don't work, you know, that they're just always at the beach, always just like, you know, getting tanned and stuff like that. But like that's not the tourists, you know, like it's not the actual people there. So I think that those are like the stereotypes that I found here of just like being like constantly like, are you guys lazy? Like, are you guys working? You know, like it seems like you guys are partying all the time. Or things such as, oh, you don't look really colorful. Or, like you don't look quite Brazilian to me. And I never heard that until I got here. I was like, oh, what do you mean? Like, don't quite colorful? Does that, what does that mean? So yeah, that's pretty much my experience with that.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And it's just an example of just if all you see are stereotypes on TV, then it's hard to explain your culture to people. It can be harming in a way because it's hard, you know, people think you just party and you're on the beach. Um, Joanne, did you have a question?
Yeah, it's just a comment. I think when you are given broken or shallow mirrors to look in, because we know that media is both a mirror and a window, it provides people with certain identities with a reflection of themselves, and it provides those without the opportunity to learn, to be better allies, or to interpret individuals with different identities. But when you're only given broken or shallow mirrors, then you believe that your life also has to be broken or shallow. So I think I don't have a personal anecdote. I do respect our time, but I just think we should move forward with that understanding of how powerful media is.
Thank you. And so Kelly, do you want to bring up we have the slide where we had just tried to come up with some characters that we could think of. Okay. Here's a few. I mean, obviously some of these are older just because I think we are getting away a little bit from, hopefully, from these characters. So there's Baljeet from Phineas and Ferb. He's also very embraced in the community as well because it was the first time that you really saw one of the main characters, you know, being from India. But at the same time, he is, you know, super smart. He's always like he's building things like a brainiac. He's like and his parents are strict and everybody makes fun of him and bullies him. He's always the gag of the shows, and so they're teasing him. So he is a character that's kind of embraced. Apu from The Simpsons, again, everybody knows about him being that he's very based on a stereotype. In fact, he wasn't even voiced by an actor. He was voiced by a white actor, but it would cause damage to the community because everyone just felt that they were like the brunt of a joke, or everyone would try to impersonate the accent and everything. And it ended up causing harm because it was a character based on a stereotype. I have here I have, like, I picked from Aladdin. I feel like I'm bullying. It was hard. It was really hard to find movies, and if anybody wants to point out TV shows and stuff with like Middle Eastern characters, because I felt like it was completely lacking representation. I picked Aladdin just because what I found interesting about this movie, and even the new version as well, is that the main leads, everyone's supposed to be, Middle Eastern, because their identity is a little bit obscure there. But the leads are, American accents and, lighter skinned. And then Jafar, who is the bad guy, he's the only one that has really darker features, and he also has like an accent. And so he was seen as the villain. So this often happened in shows. I just wanted to pick out some of these characters. That they were one of the ones that our kids mentioned. So if anyone can. So again, it's just, it can be damaging because if you're seeing yourself as a stereotype or as a villain, people don't realize that it does affect these communities because they're more than just these people.
Yeah.
Although personally, I loved Jafar. He was my favorite, but I didn't realize now that he was kind of stereotype and it was offensive to the community.
So yeah, I think it's just being careful with how you're presenting characters, writing them in. Like it's essential that they're there in the story, but just making sure that they're there and there's thought put in when you put the characters in.
And I want to add that in our consultations, we had a kid say that they liked Aladdin because the characters actually dressed like they sometimes dress at home. Mm-hmm. So even when there's so little representation, that the kids will get excited even when it's bad, because they're being seen a little bit.
Exactly. Because it's all we have, right? So sometimes you just have to embrace they're problematic, but you're still like, it just shows that representation really does matter. And the more that you write it in, and hopefully more positive characters will come out of it. And actually, I know it's a sort of off topic, but I wanted to say that also when doing research, we found that even though it wasn't their skin color, but a lot of the villains all had like a foreign accent. They were from, even if it was just like some kind of European accent or some kind of, so it was perpetuating the fact that if you don't speak with an American or a Canadian accent,
if you're not from here,
you are the villain. So that was interesting in our research. Do you want to go to the slide where it's the kids' quotes?
Yeah, Christine, can you pull up the quote slide?
There we go.
Yeah. So this is talking about the impact, and these are quotes coming from the research. It's about comfort. So in the first one, it's just about not feeling like you're just in a room full of white people. In the next quote, people of color, they tend to, if they can't see themselves, like the woman who's of Persian descent, not being able to find anything Middle Eastern, but looking for other cultures that are similar and might share the values. Then this last one is one that always hits me. In Diary of a Wimpy Kid, this South Asian boy said he saw this character, he's always being made fun of, and he thought when he was watching it as a kid that he would grow up to be weak and small like that character. Then he grew up and he's a big, tall, athletic person. But he didn't realize, when he was a kid, he thought he was going to be limited and went to that characterization. So I think that again reinforces the responsibility that children's content creators have, that you're shaping the perspective of what their kids are capable of being.
Yeah, I think that just, to add a positive twist is that just making sure that they're exactly embracing the representation that is there, and like really having an impact, like seeing those characters made such an impact on our lives, like us watching Sesame Street and seeing kids speak Spanish and seeing just like normal people presented as just like regular people, really made an impact on us, as well as I'm sure it did on other people. But just like, you know, allowing the characters of color to be, you know, the good guys, to have you know, be the heroes, have all those different stories. And I think that it's actually getting much better. Once we started putting it all together, there was a lot of really great content coming out for kids. I think that the next generations will have a lot more stuff to look at for sure. I think like even just like with Disney with Miss Marvel and like other, like just these characters that are coming up with these backstories and lots of culture and importance. This is going to be really cool to see the impact.
Yeah, so one of the things we wanted to talk about was just obviously we named Sesame Street because to us it was a show growing up that we really related to as like a Latin family living in this. But we were trying to, so one of the comments in the Being Seen is that kids grow up watching a lot of American television and they don't necessarily see anything that reflects to the Canadian experience. And so, for example, the stats that we saw, you know, Canada is built a little bit differently. We're not all in urban pockets. There's a lot of variety of people and we're more mixed in. So I guess we were just trying to come up with an example of a show that's like Sesame Street, but it's more of a Canadian show with the Canadian experience. So I don't know if anyone can talk about that. To us, we were thinking like it's not a kid's show, but Kim's Convenience to us seemed a show that was very Canadian. I felt we're from Toronto, so I apologize if we're very Toronto skewed. But I felt it was finally a show that felt like where we're from, and it was also embraced, but
not problematic.
It's also problematic.
So it's sort of like the catch.
I think we were trying to think of Degrassi Junior High, and
I think Degrassi for sure was, you know, has always had a variety of the cast is very variety. Then they make a point to try to get it to you get to know all the characters mostly. So, and it's Canadian, it's very Canadian feeling, I think.
So I think it's a tricky question, but I guess the question was, can you think of a show that's like where it feels where it has more of the Canadian experience of what it's like to be multicultural and mixed, and it's Canadian. So hard question. I was thinking, well, Red Panda, right? Turning red. Again, all of my things are from Toronto. I was trying to think of like an urban or like rural one. Little Mosque on the Prairie, but it's not new. It's not new.
16 Hudson was the kids show that we sort of all agreed on. Some TVO, and it's a good way to show a bunch of different cultures all living sort of together.
So are there any shows that we can think of that are kid shows that are not like urban? Like
it's challenging.
I know there was the show Wild Kratts, even though it was like two dudes, they had ancillary characters who were scientists. So there was a black character, she was a scientist, and then now I can't remember the background of the other gal, but she was also a scientist. So it was like, all right, I'll give you that, but that was as far as like I'm trying to like rack my brain right now of those shows. I know the Knowledge Network in BC has some really great programming, but I can't remember any of the shows, but they are a little bit better at this than some of the other channels. So
in the chat, Abby Hatcher has been raised. I think that's I think there is.
Isn't that the show with the little girl with the glasses?
Yeah, but I think she's biracial. I say. Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, it just shows that here we are as content
being a-
creators, and we need to make sure that we are also reflecting the Canadian experience a little more. So that
Yeah, I mean, it kind of brings us into our next thing. I think what one of the things that we sort of realized in going through this is that there was a lot of like ambiguous diversity where it was like not really discussed. Like there are a character that's clearly of color, but there's always kind of like playing safe and being like, I guess as part of the Canadian polite culture, but just not really being too diverse ethnic, or like not really going into where their background is or like who they are or why they are and their story, or like kind of wanting to avoid, so like having characters who are Muslim, for example, but not wanting to, like, we don't go into the Muslim religion in the show, so or these characters that are like ambiguously diverse, as in like they have a diverse name, or they're like sketched a little tanner or browner in the animation, but other than that there isn't really anything to hold on to about that character that would make them any different than any of the other characters. So it's kind of like we were sort of talking about, we see why it's done because they want everybody to kind of be able to relate. They don't want to kind of tokenize a character, but on the flip side it's almost like holding back these ethnicity, like not wanting to present them as ethnic is also part of the problem.
Yeah, and I think that really just comes down to not having the correct people on your team. So you just have a writer's room that's just there's no one that's really diverse or from different backgrounds. So they're like, oh, let's just make this character, we'll just add a hijab on the character, or we'll just give them the name, Carlos, and then we did our diversity. I was trying to think of examples. It's hard to think of, like, I think I know it's Harry Potter, but the character of Cho Chang, let's say. So she, obviously it's a book, but the writer, who we all know,
We shall not name them.
she decided like, oh, I'm gonna have an Asian character, but she just kind of put together two names that didn't really add up. It was like a Chinese name and a Korean name, I think, are the two last names. And this ended up being the only character in the series. So it was just not really done properly. I was just trying to think if anyone else can think of examples of characters that are either just put together with very little research, or they're just kind of culturally ambiguous. Yeah, I think for us, I was thinking Dora the Explorer, which I love because it was the first character that you saw. But she, is she Mexican? She's actually Peruvian, but it was just kind of mismatch of all South American Mexican cultures put together to make her, the ideal person, but not understanding that there's can be a mix of people.
Even like Princess Eleanor of it's like she's our Latina princess, kind of. She's not really a princess, but she is Latina, which is a whole mix of cultures all combined in one. She's not specifically Princess Elena, thank you. She's not specifically from anywhere, so she kind of is a combination. And I think that there's these roles, i.e. Raya and the Last Dragon, and like the new Aladdin movie, which are these kind of like
cultural, but like what culture are we highlighting specifically? You know, it's something to still thinking. I think it would be better if we named culture and we celebrated identity and we gave backstory to characters, because I think that it kind of, even though it's great that there's these cultural characters, that kind of again does us harm, because we get sort of blanketed as oh, you're the ethnic diverse people, but when we really are all different people. Yeah, I think understanding that people of color are, there's so many people, like, and we all have different cultures and communities, and you know, even if the Latin community has a lot of different cultures amongst it, like you were saying about Brazil, you know, it's very different, but I think people would just rather lump everyone in as opposed to harming anyone. So again, it just comes down to, so when you're thinking about your characters and you're writing your characters, try to think of, you know, do the research where you have a specific culture, and as opposed to just lumping everyone in.
And I think this is what the kids have told us, that they're interested, even if the character they're looking at doesn't belong to their culture, they appreciate the specificity. So it's not about making everything one bland group to try to attract a larger audience. That audience wants to know, you know, that brown character, is that an Indian character, or is that a Bangladeshi character? Like, they want to know, and then they feel represented, you know, by that.
Yeah. Great. Like, yeah, like Turning Red, again, I'm bringing it back up, but I mean, remember that review that came out where, you know, he said that he didn't identify with it at all because he was, as a white male, felt that he was not represented in that movie. But to me, you know, I watched it and it wasn't my background, but everyone kind of related to, it was interesting to learn about a new culture, but also, you know, you could all relate to, for me anyway, I could relate to being the young girl as well as the mother. And I just think there's nothing wrong with teaching people specifically about one's culture. And you shouldn't fear that you have to kind of mesh it and be ethnically ambiguous to get along with everyone. I think you can make your project specific to your culture and your identity, and it still will be embraced, because even if you're not of that background, it's still, you know, you can still relate to it. Yes.
I could think like Encanto was a very good example, I think, of showing a different, you know, Colombia culture, showing the diversity of all the different characters, but then it was also embraced by other, you know, Latin American countries who also can embrace it and relate to it. If anyone else wants to add a point, they can. That we can move on to the next. Well, go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, it's not necessarily like a kid's show, but when I was younger, you're probably familiar with High School Musical. That was like huge for kids like age 12 and under. But there's the main character, Gabriela Montes, which is Vanessa Hudgens, and she's Filipina. She was playing assumed to be Latina character, and that was never addressed like throughout the whole series. But she was the like lead. She was like, I know there was like a couple of black actors that didn't have any, you know, highlight in the movie at all. They were just literally like basically background characters, which is kind of quite aesthetic. But for her to be like, you know, racially ambiguous, I guess, because she is mixed as well. But she was right there, and then she also like was my only representation as me because I'm like fairly mixed, and I like my, you know, color shade of my color skin is like quite like hers, and I was like, that's so interesting because like the first time for me as a 8-year-old looking at a movie and they're like doing so much, they're like singing stuff like that, and she's a girl. I was like, so interesting, you know, like to see, but it was never addressed, and that was really interesting as I grew older, and I was like, oh, she's still Latina, and she was like a Latina character, and that was pretty much it, you know, not like nothing was ever addressed about her background. aside from the other characters, because the other characters like so much development about like where they're from and like who they are, but she didn't. That was like really interesting.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think that's sort of the way it seems to be. I think it's, again, it comes from a place of like, sorry, I think it comes from a place of like trying to be polite and inclusive by not giving specifics to the diverse characters. But I think as we're all talking about today, is it really is more harmful to not to kind of avoid the backstory and explain who this person is.
Yeah, and we've heard from kids that they really respond even to the slightest little remark that explains who the character is. So even if it's not written into the character, once you've cast, think about the background of your live action. It works better in live action, the live action actors, and write in a little explanation as to who they are, and the audience will really respond to that.
And do your research. If it's not a community that you know too much about, reach out to people of that community so that you get it right. And even if they're just a side character, it's so important to try to get it as correct as possible. And it really makes a difference, as you've all, this whole point is kids just really want to see themselves represented authentically.
We are paying attention to everything about that character, so you should also pay attention to that character.
So, I mean, we can, before, because this is ending soon, but we can basically spend the last little while, we've kind of given an overlay of it, but now I guess is how can we actually put that into effect into the content that we are creating? So everyone here are you all kids content creators? Yes. Yeah, perfect. So, I mean, we're all here. We all want to make a difference. And I think that, as a collective, we can, put these into not just the writing room, but there's other ways to do it. I guess one of the questions that often comes up, and which I said is, how can I write a story? I want to write a story that includes, somebody who's from India, but I'm not from India. So, but can I still put that character in my film? So I guess as we want to say yes, but what are ways that we can do that that make sure that we're not just kind of putting somebody in for the sake of putting somebody in, but putting somebody in that's real. So we can
Ask that question.
ask that question. I would say like just some suggestions obviously is putting people in the writing room that are a variety of backgrounds. If you have a character that's from India and you're not Indian yourself, then try to get people in the writing room. Consultants do work as well, but bring the consultants early on. Like don't do the project first and then ask the consultant after. Try to bring people in.
And just a very different various experiences. We do not speak on behalf of all Mexicans or Latinos. So we can definitely offer insight, but I would also, it's kind of important to bring a whole bunch of people around your project versus just one person that they may have a different opinion than everybody. So I don't think you can always get it right. You can't always get it perfect, but I think if you talk to a lot of people, it will help. But of course, if anyone else wants to add.
I can go ahead if you can hear me well. I'm actually, I just recently transitioned into being more interested in children's media content. I'm still a student, so I'm still just getting myself around all the places I can be in. But I currently teach at underrepresented areas in Toronto. So I teach kids storytelling and story making. One thing that's really interesting, even for me as a writer, getting as much information from that kid is going into those schools and learning about what they want to be seen, like literally having in front of them a person that looks like them teaching a room, a person helping them that looks like them. And I remember specifically, I was helping this little girl with her story, and then she didn't feel like she had a story to tell. And I was like, no, you can have to, tell me something that's happening in your life, and then we can put that in the story. And she came up with the character, and we came up with this question of, oh, how does the character look like? And she was like, oh, she's a girl. And I was like, okay, what does her skin color look like? And then she was like, oh, like um like a light brown. I was like, oh, how would you describe that? I was like, like our skin." And she was like, yeah, so you find it like like there's a similarity between us, and you realize that. And she was like, yeah, and I feel like that's the color of her skin is like our skin. How do they describe that? So it can write light brown or anything like that. um but they are like very curious about having people come in and tell a story and see themselves represented in it. Again, I cannot represent like half the class in just a few kids, but like there's like my coworkers, so like a black coworker or an Asian coworker, and then they feel represented. So when I think of like as a writer and putting that into my telling a story, I'm always just like, well, if I want to target a specific ethnicity and group of people, I do need to do some research with the kids. Like what are they missing? Like what are things that make them interested in hearing another story, being told. So that's a way I think from now on I'm gonna keep trying as long as I'm working at this place. But that's I'll always just take advantage of being close to kids and being able to research with them.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I think we're all here because we want to see this change, and we're all I wish that now we can all work together to try to get broadcasters on board or bigger companies on board, because we all know, just as kids growing up, how important it is. And I think it's great. The more writers that go out there, more content creators, producers, even just having people on your team. We try to have everyone across the team. So if we were doing a show that's featuring Indigenous stories, I know this is not an Indigenous, but we try to have everybody on the team, writers, camera assistants, directors, sound, because it's like everyone can give. If you surround yourself with as many people from that community, even if it's not your story, but you surround yourself with as many, then you're making sure that you get different perspective and different authenticity, and sign off, almost like also listening to people on your team. We've all been the people I'm sure that have spoken up and said, I think the character would be better like this. And I think listening to those people and making sure that you surround yourself with as many different people around you, you will get the authenticity that you want in your stories.
And I just want to say that I think that the kids today are seeking out people like them, regardless of whether or not we're putting them on, like we as the creators are putting them on TV. We're watching, like I'm watching my daughter, finding, non-binary people on TikTok and social media, and like they're finding their people in other ways. And it's sort of it's our job as creators to help them find those people. We should be also making those people available on our content as well, because the kids are actively, they're looking. If you're looking at the influencers of various abilities, whether they have a deaf influencer or whoever, like they're already looking for those people, and TV should also match the diversity on the social media that are, because I think the kids are just going elsewhere
kids are watching YouTube, kids are watching YouTube, kids are watching TikTok. So they do watch themselves and people that look like themselves. And so I guess we just have to then relay as creators and content creators to the broadcasters and to the people buying the shows that this is what people want, because this is what they are,
That's what they're watching.
kids are watching.
Like if you like spend time looking at what they're looking at, that is what they're looking at. So it's just like what we need to, how do we convince everyone above us to change? I guess we can just keep creating our content and hoping.
So hopefully we inspired a little bit, but also, you know, we don't claim to be experts at all. We're just trying to do our thing. But we just need more people in the industry. So I'm happy that everyone came to this to, you know, try to put this into their own work so that we can reach all children.
Yeah, I think the more we talk about it, the more conversations we have, you know, just the more difference we can make. And I think it's, you know, we have to also reach out to our non-BIPOC friends to also be a part of these groups, because I find that often these groups are the people that already know what needs to happen, but we need to reach out to our other friends to be like, come in, because I think that's the only way it's going to change. I think we are a small group who are already screaming, make a change, but we need everybody to be a part of it. So hopefully we'll start seeing some change.
And that's, you know, I'll refer back to the Being Seen research, because it can be used not only for people to get guidance on how to create more authentic content, but if you are from an underrepresented community and you need some help making those arguments, or you're tired of making those arguments all the time, the research can help you, because you can hand it over and say, it's not just me. You know, and in the case of, you know, children's media, you've got real kids saying, this is what I want. So it should help to sell this. And I think there are not only creative, but also business opportunities here to try to get some of those kids back from YouTube and TikTok, you know, since that's where they're going to find their content. You know, let's create some scripted stuff for them on broadcast platforms. We had a conversation with some kids earlier today where it's like, well, they go to Netflix because there is a lot of diversity of content there, and YouTube and TikTok. A little bit of CBC, but you know, like there's a lot of missed opportunities there.
Yeah.
So
I also think kids TV, we are doing great. I just want to say it's a good job. I just wish now it would transfer over to the adult shows and other content, but we can only start in one place for now.
Can I add to this?
yes.
Mhm.
Well, I'm producing a show called Sunny's Quest. It's coming out on TVO Kids. It's putting Black kids at the forefront. That's age 8 to 11. And I was blessed enough to work with a diverse group of people. It is going to be quite different because all the cast is Black and they come from across Canada. I can't wait to see what people are going to say about the show, parents, teachers, because growing up, I've never seen a show where they're putting Black kids at the forefront. So it is changing, but we need to create more content, just because parents are so excited when they're like, really? Only Black kids? And just the fact that the parents are excited, the kid is excited, the whole family, it's a good thing, but that means there's an appetite to see more of themselves, more Canadian content, more of our stories, more snows, like everything we see is almost American. I know CBC has great content, where there's diversity. I think we're all creators here and we have a mandate to create more content, more stories, because the more they see themselves, the more they're going to be empowered, and also they would want to do they would be the next generation that will take our place when we're too old to do what we love to do.
Yeah, and I think it's important, obviously, for BIPOC kids to see themselves on TV, but it's also important for non-BIPOC kids to see BIPOC kids on TV. I think it should be, everybody should want, and again, see, and I mean, the more we see everybody on TV, the more normalized it is, because it's true, like you see different cultures, different languages, different accents, different faces, different, and it's still very much not like that on TV. It's getting better.
Getting better though. I'm excited for
But
Sunny's class.
Thanks, Sunny's Pass. Yeah, that's cute.
Congrats.
Thank you. I'm still looking for writers and directors. So just putting it out there, but yes, we're actually filming the second season. So yeah, I'm very proud, and I think things are changing, and it's exciting just having those honest conversation and sharing knowledge. It's fantastic. I've prayed for this all my life, and to see it happening is great.
Well, that's fantastic. Unfortunately, we do have to wrap this up. We promised you it would be an hour. Can we have the thank you slide? That's it. These are the funders for the report. And we had the funders for the workshop are Black Screen Office, Shaw Rocket Fund, and the Canadian Race Relations Foundation. I want to thank everybody for coming and participating, and of course for Georgina and Renata for leading the conversation. I think it's been very insightful, and we've got, if you missed, as I said earlier, if you missed the first two, the recordings will be coming out, and then we've got 2 more workshops to follow this week. So thank you again, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.